Live everywhere.
Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? It is Wednesday, September 21st, 2016. The campaign is still going. We haven't had our election yet, though it turns out lots of people have already cast their ballots. Too late now, if you change your mind. Although, my guess is, if you're voting this early, you've made up your mind. And congratulations to you. Apparently, there are still people who have not. And I don't understand these guys, but what can you do? Some people have other interests. It takes a while for them to get around to it. We'll do our best to convince them that they ought to get off the fence. I don't think any of them are listening to the show, but maybe what we'll do is arm you with something you can hit them over the head with and change their minds. Although, I guess at this point, if you haven't noticed that Donald Trump is nuts, then I don't know if there's any way to convince you of it. But that doesn't matter. It's not going to stop me from telling you more stories about exactly how nuts he is. And then, of course, because there are other races going on, say, for seats in Congress and dog catcher and other things in other jurisdictions, we'll discuss a little bit of that, too, and find out what your Congress is actually up to, if anything, as we're joined later in the show by Joan McCarter, senior political writer at Daily Kos, trying very hard behind the scenes in ye old email to try and line up a few more of the contributors that you enjoy reading so much on the front page at Daily Kos, including some of the new ones just signing on. Always been a goal of the show, one of many. One is, of course, to become $1 billion industry. We're not doing so well on that one, but we're working on it. The other one, of course, to get more Daily Kos voices on board, and that, of course, a two-pronged approach. The first being to remind everybody, once again, that the avenue that, let's say, among others, Rosalind McGregor has made such great use of, just pick up your smartphone and rather than dial the show, because we don't actually do that anymore. We tried that. Do you remember way back? There really was some remarkably engineered online technology that allowed us to take phone calls. The only problem was we would have no idea who was calling or why, and there was no real way to answer the phones and tell people, hold on, we see you, we'll be right with you, without actually just putting them on the air and doing it. It's good technology, and you need a little bit more engineering and a little bit more help screening the calls to make that really work. But it was really kind of brilliant that somebody was able to put it together. But just didn't work for our shoestring budget thing. But the next best thing is to pick up your smartphone and rather than call us, just pretend you're calling us and that we're not talking to you and not answering, and you just dictate what you've got to say. Read the newspaper. Find articles that are interesting to you the way Rosalind did. Read them. Comment on them the way we do on the show. Put it all together. You don't even have to edit the thing. If you make mistakes, that's okay. So do we. It sounds like you're live in studio that way. Maybe, sort of, kind of. That's a good excuse for it. And email it to us. How do you get to us? Well, as you know, it's the Kagro in the Morning Show. The X is a great placeholder for signing up at old-style blogs and bulletin board systems that demanded a second name, and I was using a fake name, and my fake name didn't have a surname, so like Malcolm, I just put X. I suppose I could have put something else. It was cultural appropriation to put the X, but just sort of an X marks the spot thing. And way back when, in 1984, when I was, I don't know how old or whatever teenage age I was, I didn't know about cultural appropriation, and X was just one of those placeholder letters. That's the origin of the X. But that's how you can reach me on Twitter, KagroX, or at Gmail, kagrox@gmail.com. Mail me that file. Spend a couple minutes reading something that is interesting to you that I haven't paid enough attention to, or that I paid attention to incorrectly, or that you have one more excellent point to add on top of everything else. And actually, I mean, if it's a 30-second observation, yesterday you read this, that, the other article, and you missed something. Or I have some personal experience with that, and I think you're wrong about it. Or you're fantastic, you're the best, here's a shrink-wrapped brick of cash. I don't know how you would email that to me. Send me a picture. Whatever it is, I guess there's really no reason to limit it. Certainly no lower limit. I suppose if you really wanted to come on and just, I don't know, if you want to send me some sound effects, you want to make a fart noise in the phone and put your name to it, go for it. We'll all know. I'll tell them who did it. But maybe you're into that. 1 minute, 5 minutes. I guess we'd draw the line at saying, well, sure, just send us, half an hour worth. I do that. But then again, I get up early and I help, put this whole thing together. I think I deserve that half hour. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But maybe it's great. Send it to me. I'll screen it at that point. I'll play it. You can have a podcast. You don't have to be a front pager at Daily Kos to play this game. And Arliss Bunny is a great example of that. She came on, did a few minutes on the show, made it a semi-regular thing on the after show, said the hell with it, I'm going to do my own podcast. And it all starts with the 5-10 minute appearances. We haven't convinced Roz to start her own Michigan-based show yet. But, hey, it's in the offing. There's plenty of space in the podcasting world. There doesn't have to be a time slot for you. And you don't have to keep a schedule. It's a great way to start, a great way to be heard, and a great way to get the word out if you have an idea about something that was generated on the show or missed on the show, but you don't have time to do a post about it. No links necessary, although I do ask that you send me perhaps a copy of the article you've been reading so I can share it with everyone else. Speaking of articles they've been reading and want to share with anyone else, the first person to take up this challenge, Greg Dworkin, is here to do it again. Good morning, Greg.
You mean first today?
Yeah. Well, so far, anyway. I hung up on Bill. I wouldn't let him do it.
Well, how are you?
I'm okay. Donald Trump is still running, but he's not president yet, so I'm all right.
This is true. So we're having some polling discussions online. We're actually kind of having fun with it.
Really?
And let's just set the scene here. I just want to give you some polling averages here.
It's a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark and stormy night. I think all novels should start with that. I think all stories about Donald Trump should start with that.
That's true.
So I'm looking at the Huffington Post pollster 2016 general election, Trump versus Clinton, and I see a 4-point lead, which is actually rather steady for a month. I'm looking at Talking Points memo. Trump versus Clinton, Clinton 48.2, Trump 44.1. That's a 4.1 lead. And that has not been steady. Well, it's been steady because Clinton's going up and gaining a little bit in that. Trump's going up, but Clinton's gaining more. So it was a little bit closer. I'm looking at the USC LA Times poll. That's not University of Southern California, but the LA Times tracker. And Clinton's picked up some points over the last few days. Her nadir was at the time that she got that pneumonia, and she's down in the poll, but that's a Trump favoring poll, and she's gained 3 points over the last few days.
I like that Trump favoring poll.
The UPI C vote tracker had Trump up 3 last week, and it's really weird to figure out how they publish. They publish randomly, it seems like, every day, and then they skip 2 days, and then they publish again. But it went from a Trump 3-point lead to a tie with Hillary Clinton, actually a minuscule lead in the poll. In other words, everything except for the Ipsos Reuters tracker seems to be trending toward Clinton. We had that over the weekend Muhlenberg Morning Consult poll that had Pennsylvania up 9. We had 2 Florida plus 5 polls. And then we had that fascinating poll that we talked about on Monday with Armando from Upshot Siena, showing essentially a tie or maybe a 1-point lead, depending upon how you read it, for Clinton in Florida, and what the ultimate impact of that was. So trying to explain why the polls seem to be trending Clinton, but the predictions seem to be trending Trump, has been something of a conundrum. And what I mean by that is that probably the best place to look at that would be Upshot, because they summarize everything. So I'm just going to send it over. Upshot,
Okay.
even though it's New York Times, I don't think you pay for clicks there. So
Freebie, I think.
that's a useful thing. So
Yeah.
I haven't loaded up my Skype with lots and lots of links, but I'll send you that one. And basically what you can see is it goes from 538 saying that Clinton's got a 57% chance. Daily Kos has a 63% chance, not that different. PredictWise 72 is higher. New York Times is 75. And Sam Wang is 81. Larry Sabato says likely Dem. Charlie Cook and Stu Rothenberg say leaning Dem, and they've got stories about that. And so the predictions seem to be a bit all over the place. They all say Clinton wins, but by varying degrees of confidence. And so we were just trying to explain a little bit about why that is. And it's partly because 538 doesn't see Colorado as a clear, at least their model. You know, it's not them personally. They're not sitting there tweaking it or making it closer so they can get clicks. But their model doesn't see New Hampshire and Colorado as sure things for the Democrats, whereas the other models do. So that's one major difference. The other is that whereas most of the models see Nevada as a toss-up, a couple of them actually award to Trump, and things for Iowa, based on recent polls.
Oh, my. We have a little bit of breakup in your signal here.
Well, for each of the different states, different models, New York Times 538, Daily Kos, they all assign slightly different probabilities to the swing states. And yet, if you're looking at the total number of electoral votes, most of the models still give Clinton well above 270. And so if you think that she's going to get well above 270, why would the chances for Trump winning go up, and why would the chances for Clinton go down at a time that the polls seem to have changed over the last 3, 4, 5 days and started to swing in her favor? And that's the discussion we're trying to have online.
Okay.
Part of the answer is you can look at the same data and come up to different conclusions. One great example of that is that Florida I was talking about. We had this group here. We gave 4 good polls, raw data, and they had 4 different results.
Four,
okay.
Yeah, four, same set of data, 4 pollsters, 4 different sets of results.
And 4 different results. So the New York Times Upshot in the Commonwealth of Florida says Clinton is up 1.
Okay.
Right? From the law poll. Look,
you know what?
if I'm going to interpret it, I think Clinton's up 3.
Greg, the connection has now gotten so shaky. Can I
Let me
ask you
call
to?
back.
Yeah. Why don't we see if we can clear this up? Because this is good stuff. I want everyone to be able to hear it. Sorry about that, everybody. How come Skype doesn't ask me to rate that call? That's a good question. All right, let's try this again. Maybe just one more shot at it. We'll get it better.
Hey, is it better?
Yeah. We're here. Can you hear us?
Great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, still a little bit choppy, but I hope a little bit less. Let's give it another
sorry
try.
about that. Anyway, I'll do it for a little bit, and you'll just take off if it turns out the signal breaks up. So you gave it the different polls, and you gave the raw data from Florida and different pollsters for the Upshot CNN poll. Upshot says Clinton +1. Charles Franklin from the MU Law poll, Clinton +3. Republican pollster Patrick Reese, Clinton +1.
Ruffini, okay.
Right? Pollster Margie O'Mara, Clinton +4. And academics, and Gell and David Buschat, Sam Corbett, these +4.
Okay, that last one the Trump +1, the Republican pollsters.
Yes, it's a bunch of academics.
Okay.
Right. They're from Stanford, Columbia, Microsoft Research.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And so, what's it all mean? It means it's close, and it's
question of how you choose to adjust the sample for the election.
Yeah. All right.
You put white vote there and stuff to go down.
All right, I will go back over this because the audio is just it's in and out a little bit. I can hear you, but it must be murder on people who don't have headphones on.
All right, so I can call back and restart my computer time.
You can give it a shot. Absolutely. If you do it, I'd love it to give you another go at it. It may just be that Connecticut weather for us. I don't know.
Why don't I take minutes and we get a better signal?
Sure. Okay. I'm so sorry that this had to work out this way, but I know everybody would like to hear this one. And if you were unable to work it out, it was fine for me. Well, not fine, but it was easier for me. I have headphones on, and I've got the article in front of me so I could follow along. But just to set the stage one more time, if you happen to have missed it, the upshot at the New York Times. Basically, an opportunity to examine Armando's definition of special sauce here. 4 good and reputable pollsters, although I see 5 here. I guess they're the 5th one. Do they not consider themselves good enough? I'm not sure. All right, let's try this again. Greg? It's it's not that much better.
All right. Well, just to lead with the short piece, just said, you look at it. I gave you the link. There's a little section there about halfway down where they all post the results, and they post the electorate is going to, and then you can see the difference.
Yeah. Okay, it's very difficult. I would say, well, maybe we'll try it with notes from you typed, and I'll pass them on.
Yeah. I'll talk to you later. See you.
Okay.
Take care.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm sorry. That's where's my opportunity to rate Skype on this one? I know they give me. They must know that. Maybe that's part of their algorithm. When they can tell internally that the call quality is high, they can send me a, hey, rate this call. What I really need is I want you to give me the opportunity to rate the last call, which was terrible. It wasn't the content so much. That was fine. All right, so we're going to look, we're going to do this remotely. Remote medicine will help us take a look at this piece. Look halfway down. Again, the 4 pollsters being given the same raw data, and they still get 4 different results. And that has to do with how you screen the data, the raw data, for the likely voter universe you think you're really most likely to see. Charles Franklin at Marquette, Patrick Graffini, a Republican pollster, I guess his company is now Echelon Insights. Margie O'Mara, among others, at Penn Schoen-Berland Research. Margie O'Mara, the lead on that one. And Sam Corbett Davies, the lead on the Stanford University, Columbia, and Microsoft Research poll. That would, of course, mean that they're including Andrew Gilman and David Rothschild in those. And here's what they get. So what are we looking at? Halfway down. I'll take a look. And even better, he's just going to send me screenshots of the part we're supposed to be looking at, so I don't even have to scroll and try and find it. There we are. Okay. So here's our results separated out by the pollsters. So +3 Clinton result from, this is Florida again, right? Florida data we're looking at. Charles Franklin gets it at Marquette at +3 Clinton. Patrick Graffini +1 Clinton. O'Mara, Green, and Rosenblatt +4 Clinton. Those are all fairly close. The one, certainly 1 point between 4 and 3 doesn't make too much difference. +1, a little closer. Then +1 Trump, says Corbett, Davies, Gelman, and Rothschild. New York Times, Upshot, and Siena, the 5th entrant into this, gets Clinton +1. And so it has to do, now we can take a look at how they decide on what they think the electorate is going to look like. Essentially, why does Charles Franklin get a +3? Why does Margie O'Mara get a +4? They view the likely model of turnout in Florida as +5 for the Dems, that's Charles Franklin, and +4 Dems for O'Mara. Now, interestingly, so she says that the electorate is likely to be +4 Dem overall, and guess what? It's a +4 Democratic win. This is interesting. Charles Franklin says it's a +5 Dem electorate and nets us a +3 Democratic win. What else goes into the figuring? Now, by the way, everybody, the first three, Franklin, Ruffini, the Republican, and O'Mara, all see Democratic electorates in Florida. +5, +1, and +4. Corbett, Davies, and the New York Times assume a +1 Republican electorate. And then the next level of the analysis comes along. Why would Franklin have a +5 Dem sample, but only a +3 win? More whites, essentially, is it? This is the thing to look at here. How do we get, what does the +5 Democratic electorate look like actually physically look like, according to Charles Franklin? 68% white, 15% Hispanic, 10% black. A +5 Democratic electorate that's 68, 15, 10 comes out with a +3 Clinton win. Patrick Ruffini sees slightly less white voters, 67% is his assumption, slightly less Hispanic voting too, 14%, slightly more black voting at 12%. So 68, 15, 10 with a +5 Democratic electorate comes out at +3 Clinton. 67, 14, 12 with a +1 Democratic electorate overall comes out at +1. O'Mara sees it this way: 65, 15, 12 with a +4 Democratic electorate, +4 for Clinton. Corbett, Davies, Gelman, Rothschild, they see it this way: the biggest chunk of all of the outfits given over to the assumption that white voters, given over to that they would constitute considerably more of the electorate, 70%. That is followed by New York Times upshot that assumes a 69% white electorate. Everybody else is a couple points below that. 70 and 69 are the two biggest white electorate assumptions. 68 is the close following of Charles Franklin, then 67 Ruffini, 65 O'Mara. And that seems to be the biggest issue there. Hispanic voting, pretty close. Black voting, pretty close as well. So let's see. Corbett, Davies, 70% white, 13% Hispanic, 14% black. The highest assumption of black turnout, but also the highest assumption of white turnout in a +1 Republican assumption of the entire electorate, +1 Trump. And 70% white, yeah, that's that is, it's not far and away the largest, but it's definitely the largest. The New York Times says 69% white, 14% Hispanic, 12% black, +1 Republican electorate. They come out with a Clinton +1. There's not a whole lot of, at least in this section, not a whole lot of people willing to come out and say, yeah, I see a Trump victory. And the only one who does it gives him a +1. That's pretty close to the bone, if you ask me. All right. So the last one is on likely voters, this comment that Greg forwards to me. There are varying decisions on these questions among the four pollsters and the fifth, the New York Times, and their modeling. The varying decisions on these questions add up to big differences in the result. Not even that big, but certainly it doesn't get any bigger than, Trump wins versus Clinton wins, but okay, it's still close. The varying decisions on these questions add up to big differences in the result. In general, the participants who used vote history in the likely voter model showed a better result for Trump, who they love to call Mr. Trump, not just because it's the New York Times, but because everybody seems to call Mr. Trump Originally, I was thinking this is like one of these stupid reflexive things that people do when they meet somebody who they at least think is rich and is wearing a suit and tells everybody that he's better than they are, and they call him Mr. Trump. But then I realized he doesn't have any other title. We can call everybody else senator this, governor that, secretary whatever, but he's just this guy. He doesn't even have a doctorate in economics. He's just Mr. Trump, so I guess we're stuck with that one. Even though I guess I'd be fine with just calling him, hey, you jerk, or something like that. But it's going to take a long time for probably the New York Times to get around to doing something like it. It's very informal. Okay, so let me follow along here. I want to open up a couple of things that are happening in the Twitter world and keep an eye on them and keep us up to date on what's happening with all of that stuff. Let's see. I got to try and open a few things and open a couple of pocket items and take care of them. Let's see. I'll put a few things away. A little housekeeping here, if you don't mind. Let's see. I'm checking what's coming through. Maybe we ought to give a quicker, a fuller read to what goes on here, just to make sure that I cover it well. I might as well just read down the rest of the upshot piece here, because this is what Greg would be doing in his own words and explaining it as he went along if we had a better connection. So this is basically a good explanation of what goes into that special sauce, as Armando calls it. There are two basic kinds of choices that our participants are making here. One about adjusting the sample and one about identifying likely voters. How do you make the sample that you've got, the raw data, how do you make sure that you've got a representative sample, something that looks like what, at least what you think, Florida turnout is really going to look like? You're just guessing, but it's an educated guess, hopefully. Pollsters usually make statistical adjustments to make sure their sample represents the population, in this case, voters in Florida. They usually do so by giving more weight to respondents from underrepresented groups, but this is not so simple. So, you know what the adjustments that they have to make. How do they make them? First, what source to use as the basis for your decision. Most public pollsters try to reach every type of adult at random and adjust their survey samples to match the demographic composition of adults in the census. Most campaign pollsters take surveys from lists of registered voters and adjust their sample to match information from the voter file. Which variables do they take into account? What types of characteristics should the pollster weigh by? Race, sex, and age, very standard. But what about region? What about party registration? What about education or past turnout? And finally, how? There are subtly different ways to weight a survey. One of our participants doesn't actually weight the survey in a traditional sense, but builds a statistical model to make inferences about all registered voters, the same technique that yields our pretty dot maps. Who is a likely voter? That's the next question. Who will we include as likely? And how will we define their likeliness, their likelihood of voting? Two basic ways the participants selected their likely voters. There's self-reported vote intention. Public pollsters often use the self-reported vote intention of respondents to choose who is likely to vote and who is not. Are you going to vote? Yeah. How sure are you? Positive. All right. Here we go. And then the other one is, what if this person is full of it? Why don't we instead take a look at it this way? Partisan pollsters often use voter file data on past vote history of registered voters to decide who's likely to cast a ballot, since past turnout is a strong predictor of future turnout. And the person on the phone might just want you to think they're really, really certain to vote. But you can say that every year and you never show up. Oh, well, taking that into account, that's different. Let's see. So here's a chart of the breakdown of the various participants in the survey of surveys and how they make their choices. Charles Franklin at Marquette, and you'll recall he is the one with the +5, the biggest biggest Democratic advantage in the overall electorate, +5, and he arrives at a +3 Clinton win. How did he do his modeling? His likely voters, he depends on self-reporting. Type of weighting is traditional. They're all traditional. It's the statistical modeling for the weighting is done at Stanford, Columbia, Microsoft by Corbett, Davies, Gelman, Rothschild. Might as well point that out, right? That's the one that weights their sample by modeling versus the other traditional. I don't know exactly what you would describe. I mean, I guess that was what we were reading about weighting for with demographic results, etc. And the one that uses the statistical modeling somehow to make all these inferences is the one that came up with Trump. So I guess you should keep that in mind. So the real differences here are Franklin, who got the +3 at Marquette, is the one public pollster here who uses the census matching. He's trying to build a universe of usable responses that matches what the census says about, in this case anyway, racial demographics. Apparently the census is what tells us 68% white, 15% Hispanic, 10% black. The other pollsters apparently use the voter files, and we find out we get a very different picture of what the demographics are. The big, or the one that has the most variance in it in terms of the answers is the likely voter model. Charles Franklin just says, "Are you a likely voter?" O'Mara, same thing, self-reporting. Now, voter history is what gets used by Patrick Ruffini. Voter history also used by Corbett Davies. And so there's that, which is also interesting. New York Times, Upshot, and Siena, I guess, uses a mixture of both self-reporting and history. The varying decisions on these questions add up to big differences in the result. In general, the participants who used vote history in the likely voter model showed a better result for Mr. Trump. So based on the idea that people who have voted most often in the past are most likely to show up this time, that would tend to favor Trump. We've heard that before. At the end of the article, it says here, we've posted detailed methodological choices of each of our pollsters. So if you're looking for more than just my strange and stilted reading off of the chart, you can go to the bottom of the article and get that detail. Before that, of course, a few of the writer's own observations from the exercise. And here they are. These are all good pollsters who made sensible and defensible decisions. I have seen polls that make truly outlandish decisions with the potential to produce even greater variance than this. So I guess within the universe of these five, with assumptions ranging from +1 Republican to +5 Democratic in the electorate makeup, and ranging from 65% white turnout to 70% white turnout, the answers are anywhere from +1 for Trump to +4 for Clinton. So the curve looks good for Clinton, even if it remains close. Let's see, a few of the other observations that they make down here. Clearly, the reported margin of error due to sampling, even when including a design effect, which purports to capture the added uncertainty of weighting, doesn't even come close to capturing total survey error. That's why we didn't report a margin of error in our original article, in case you were wondering. You can see why herding, that is, like cattle herding, the phenomenon in which pollsters make decisions that bring them close to expectations, can be, you can see why it can be such a problem. There really is a lot of flexibility for pollsters to make choices that generate a fundamentally different result. And I get it. If our result had come back as Clinton +10, I would have dreaded to publish it, or dreaded having to publish it. And you come back with that and you say, there's something wrong with our modeling. Let's go back to the drawing board and tinker a little bit, right? You can see why we say it's best to average polls and to stop fretting so much about single polls. It can just be a weird assumption or a good assumption that happens to come out with a weird answer that day. There's always that. Finally, a word of thanks to the 4 pollsters for joining us in the exercise. Election season is busy for pollsters, as it is for political journalists. They're thanking them for their time. I'm sure that was real interesting and nice. And so the methodological notes, they're not even all that long. Maybe we should take a look at them, because why not share them? I'll save you a click. Well, I guess they asked them for a brief summary. Tell us a little bit about your methodology. Charles Franklin, again, Clinton +3 result. Mr. Franklin approximated the approach of a traditional pollster and did not use any of the information on the voter registration files. He weighted the sample to an estimate of the demographic composition of Florida's registered voters in 2016 based on census data by age, sex, education, gender, and race. Mr. Franklin's likely voters who were those who said they were, quote, almost certain to vote. Patrick Graffini, who generated a Clinton +1, said he weighted the sample by voter file data on age, race, and gender and party registration. He next added turnout scores, an estimate for how likely each voter is to turn out based exclusively on their voting history. He then weighted the sample to the likely turnout profile of both registered and likely voters, basically making sure that there were the right number of likely and unlikely voters in the voter file. This is probably the approach most similar to the Upshot Siena methodology, so it's not surprising that it is also the closest result. Sam Corbett Davies, Andrew Gelman, and David Rothschild, the one with a +1 Trump result, says here, long story short, they built a model that tries to figure out what characteristics predict support for Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Trump based on, why they don't say secretary, I don't know, based on many of the same variables used for weighting. They then predicted how every person in the state would vote based on that model. It's the same approach we, the Upshot, used to make the pretty dot maps of Florida. The likely electorate was determined exclusively by vote history, not by self-reported choice. They included 2012 voters, which is why the electorate has more black voters than the others, and included newly registered voters according to a model of voting history based on registration. You got to figure out what to do with the new people, right? And Margie O'Mara and crew with the Clinton +4 result, their sample was weighted to state voter file data for party registration, gender, race, and ethnicity. They then excluded the people who said they were unlikely to vote. These self-reported unlikely voters were 7% of the sample, so this is the most permissive likely voter screen of the groups. In part, as a result, it's also Mrs. Clinton's, Secretary Clinton's, best performance. In an email, Ms. O'Mara, who's not a secretary, noted that every scenario they examined showed an advantage for Clinton, which I guess is good news, but of course will make some people suspicious. Just not me, because I'm just not that kind of suspicious person. I'm suspicious of Donald Trump, and only Donald Trump. I'm biased. What can I tell you? Although I guess I could say, one's a pollster and one's a candidate. That's not fair. That's a terrible comparison. Okay. Let's move on, though, to a couple of other subjects. What have we put aside that we could go to here? What makes for a good day's news? Let's do it. Got to get to the Trump bashing. We might as well. Lots of gossipy things and then a little bit of speculation. Here's the gossipy garbage for the day. Do you feel like hitting at Don Jr.? Because he's been in the news much lately with the Skittles thing. Here is a trashy tabloid piece from the New York Post from 2004, which bears almost no relevance to anything of substance. However, we're going to note it anyway because it's fun and I feel like it. And though I was taken to task very quickly by one or two of Twitter's not even all that deplorable Trump supporters, I mean, all Trump supporters are deplorable to a certain degree. What can you do? It's just a fact. They were goading me into continuing with this, and I'm happy to oblige them. Go ahead, liberals, focus on this. The electorate will never be convinced by this stupid distraction. No, they won't be, but we'll have a good time talking about it, and I don't really need to clear my subjects with the deplorables. Trump Jr. is the cheapest gazillionaire airhead, H-E-I-R, airhead, and he proposes with a free 100G, I would say K, ring. Isn't that's intriguing. 2004. Let me just get right to it. Orla Healy is the writer on this ancient article from 2004. Donald Trump Jr. obviously learned the art of the deal from his billionaire, and you didn't know to put that in scare quotes yet, billionaire father. Unfortunately, the 26-year-old scion at that point also appears to have picked up his dad's tackier traits. Oh boy. So that's continued more than 10 years down the road. Yesterday, in what has to be one of the cheesiest wedding proposals on record, Donald Jr. hunkered down, that's in the way I would put it for everyone, hunkered down on bended knee to officially present his fiancée, Vanessa Hayden. Are they still married? Is he divorced and remarried? I thought I heard that somewhere along the line. 26. This could be. Anyway, at the time he's getting married to Vanessa Hayden with a $100,000 engagement ring. Very Trump-like, although really, actually, I mean, if you're a billionaire, you would think that the ring would be $1 million ring. But it's not. It's a $100,000 ring. But it's not even that. You've probably got the idea already. $100,000 engagement ring, one that sources say the cheapskate son wrangled for free. Don't you wish you could wrangle these things for free? Like, if you do it, it's not so much a cheap thing. It's like you and I would likely never get a hold of a $100,000 engagement ring. A billionaire, that's pocket change. You would expect, again, $1 million ring, and even that would be a throwaway. How did he do it? Paparazzi and TV camera crews were the only guests, quote, invited to the less than romantic Short Hills Mall in New Jersey for the taste-deprived ceremony, where all the classiest shopping malls is where Trump's getting engaged. I mean, as shopping malls go, Short Hills is certainly upscale, but you would think, why not surrounded by gold wall coverings and gilded chairs like the rest of the Trump stunts when they get engaged or have affairs of some kind inside their penthouse. No, he goes to the mall. Why? Because there is where the Bailey Banks and Biddle jewelry store is, and that's where the 4-carat emerald-cut diamond ring framed by 2 trapezoidal, I would say, diamonds, and set in a platinum mounting, boasting another 56 diamonds, was unveiled. Bailey Banks and Biddle, very flash, those folks. I don't know if that's a national chain. I recognize them because, of course, I'm from New Jersey. I used to go to Short Hills Mall all the time. Not willingly, but, that's where a lot of shopping was done back in the day. Though I'm so old, I remember when it wasn't even an indoor enclosed mall. How do you like that? Anyway, so there's the unveiling of the ring. The quid pro quo for the free ring, a Post source said, hinged on an agreement that Donald Jr. make himself available for promotional opportunities. It's probably... let me even hold on to this for a second. So you get the idea here. Donald Trump Jr. getting engaged. He wants to get a flashy ring for his fiancée, but he's a bazillionaire. So how would he get a hold of such diamonds? Well, the only reasonable way of doing it, of course, contact a jewelry store and tell them, hey, I'm a Trump. I'll tell you what. Oh, you give me the ring for free. I'll tell everybody you're terrific. This is a tremendous, classy joint. And you want to have the kind of ring that Donald Jr. will give to his girlfriend? Come to Bailey, Banks, and Biddle. They will set you up good. I don't know. He doesn't really talk like that, but the idea is to make him classless, and I suppose people who sound like that are stereotypically understood to be classless. I don't know. It's not my fault. I didn't make it up. It's stereotype and it's wrong, people. Don't indulge in it. Please. I'm just doing this for your sake. Now you know what not to do with your own radio shows or in your daily conversation. I don't know. Anyway, that's the deal. I will promote you, and I guess presumably that means, we're gonna go to thus and such a gala. We'll be sure to have her wear the ring. We'll get photographed with it, and I'll tell everybody it's from Bailey Banks and Biddle in Short Hills Mall, New Jersey. Go get one if you can. Suckers, I got one. $100,000. I still got it. Oh, but I got it for free. That's the point. And you're not going to get that deal no matter how much you try to promote it, because I'm famous, or at least my dad is, and that makes me famous, and I get to have my picture taken with the ring, and that's all it takes. So, there you go. Good deal. How did he think of it? Well, it's probably the same kind of deal his father has with Graf, or Graf. I don't know how they pronounce it. That's another industry source referring to the ring, telling the Post there. So, apparently, it runs in the family. The Donald, it says here, gave his fiancée, Melania, you know her, a ring from Graf, Graff Jewelers. Graf has a lucrative product placement slot on The Apprentice. You see how that one works? I want to give Melania the most classy ring. I don't want to pay any money for it. Here's the deal. I'll give you guys, Graf, plugs on The Apprentice. You give me a free ring to give my fiancé who loves me because I spend so much money on her. You see? I don't know. They have a genuine love story, maybe. That's and the money is secondary, and it has to be because he's not spending any on her. So I like that. That's a great deal. It's a celebrity thing, I guess. Remember, of course, how often we see at award shows celebrities either wearing fabulous dresses that were created exclusively for them by designers. And why do you know? Who are you wearing? Why do they yell that out? Who are you wearing? Is it because they're fascinated by who they're wearing? Partly, but not really necessarily. Who cares? It looks great. You look wonderful. Do you know that? Yes, thank you. Who are you wearing? Who are you wearing is a signal, really. I guess it can be interpreted this way. I don't know how overt this really is, but I need this celebrity to talk to me. I need them to stop here for a picture for my photographer, etc. I need to be on camera getting an interview. Who are you wearing? I don't care who you're wearing. And I, the celebrity, don't particularly personally care to tell you who I'm wearing either. I mean, maybe I had a good time talking to the designer and we had fun and I want to thank them or whatever. But okay, the reason I'm talking to you, the reason I'm stopping to have my picture taken with you here now is I'm contractually obligated, because the dress is free, to, the deal is you'll give me the fabulous dress or the fabulous jewelry, either to keep for free or to use for the night for free, so long as I tell the press who I'm wearing. So it's a dumb question, and I feel dumb answering it, but I'm going to answer it because what the press here is saying, I'm giving you the free setup so that you don't have to bring it up and look too crass. I'll ask you, who are you wearing? Easy way for you to jump on the opportunity to fulfill your contractual obligation to tell people who you're wearing without looking like a cheese ball by walking around saying, by the way, my dress was made by, or by the way, these diamonds were provided by. I'll make it look natural. You told me who you were wearing because I asked you. I asked you because I don't know. Everybody else every other year asked, who are you wearing? So I guess I will too. That's a standard question now. It's really worked out very well, I think, for all involved. Anyway, I bet you didn't know that. Not only did Donald Jr. wrangle a freebie $100,000 wedding engagement ring for his fiance, but Melania is wearing a freebie too. I don't know how often they actually wear the thing. Anyway, Trump Sr. did not return calls for comment, rather. A publicist for Donald Jr., I don't know which one, also declined comment. How do they do it, by the way? I'm not really sure. We don't discuss our dealings with clients, snipped Bailey rep Tina Moore before confiding that Donald Jr. is the jewelry house's first big celebrity client. We don't discuss our dealings with clients, except this one, who's our first big celebrity client. Of course, they don't. And if that's true, and it very likely was, one of the reasons that they don't discuss dealings with clients is, who cares? Nobody knows who your clients are. Oh, by the way, Walter Jones. Well, not Walter Jones. Let's say, it'll be somebody, who's the non-famous Walter? All right, anyway, Ralph Jones came in the other day. He bought the most fabulous mid-range earrings for his wife. It was, it's a couple $1,000s. It was nothing to sneeze at. Of course, we have much more expensive pieces and a few cheaper pieces, but he spent a middling amount of money on one of our mid-range pieces yesterday. Really, I think I'll not print that. Okay, so that's why you don't discuss dealings with clients. Hayden, also 26, by the way, appeared to enjoy her moment in the spotlight and revealed that she burst out crying when Donald Jr. popped the question. Isn't that sweet? Now, why did she have to reveal that she burst out crying when Donald Jr. popped the question if the press and cameras were all there to see the presentation of the ring? Well, the answer is because she burst out crying when Donald Jr. popped the question for real in their West Side pad 2 months prior to this staged event. I don't think she burst out crying at this one. The sometime model and aspiring actress, how's she doing on that, by the way, admitted she was so surprised when her boyfriend of 1.5 years proposed that she insisted he propose again just to be sure. But right there and then on the spot, I think. Now, my next question is, did he propose 2 months before without a ring and then said, I'll get you one later? Or did he propose with a real ring at some point and then say, hey, let's rank, I could get us a $100,000 rock at Bailey, Banks, and Biddle for free if you're willing to put up with a little bit of dumb publicity. Oh, yeah, sure, I'll take that. Or, maybe it was pointed out, it's not an uncommon thing to propose and then say, how about I get you a ring and you get to shop for it and tell me what's important to you in a ring, and then we'll buy it, and that'll be the ring, rather than me assuming, all fiancés want X kind of, or I'm going to guess at it. That's not out of the question. I guess the thing that's out of bounds is, and I'm going to do it this way, and we're going to do it in front of TV cameras, fake, so that we can get a free ring out of it. And again, certainly, I don't know, for you and me, $100,000 free ring, okay, I'll perform for that. That's actually, I'm never going to get my hands on something like that otherwise. Whereas if you're really a billionaire, just get the damn $100,000 ring. But, of course, the reality is they're not really billionaires. They're just chiselers and swindlers, and that's how you go and get it. Okay, so congratulations to you guys on that one. Congratulations to Melania for also getting a freebie from product placement on The Apprentice. Boy, does Donald make use of that vehicle to get free gifts for himself. But again, not that different from a lot of celebrities. We've read about those gifting suites before. It's amazing how much free stuff goes to people who should have plenty of money to pay for it. Okay, one more ridiculous piece of dumb gossip that also was dredged up from the past. I guess this one, I might have seen it before. It never really rang a bell with me. Let's bring it up now. It's a AP article being run in Bloomberg Politics back in, well, when did that come from? Well, it was just republished, I guess, in June of 2016 as the issue came back up. It's not an original contemporaneous article. Just thought I'd remind you, though. Trump says he made, quote, a lot of money, unquote, in deal with Gaddafi. You remember that guy? Muammar Gaddafi ran Libya for so long. Everybody hated him, etc. Just thought I'd bring this story back up. It appeared randomly on Twitter, but anyway, worth noting. Donald Trump said he made a lot of money in a deal years ago with Muammar Gaddafi, which they now spell with a G these days, despite suggesting at the time that he had no idea the former Libyan dictator was involved in renting his suburban New York estate. Long story short, just to make sure that we get to it here, Gaddafi is in town. Hey, what are you doing in New York, Gaddafi? Gaddafi, sorry. Well, he was there for a UN General Assembly meeting. And okay, maybe that's one of the few excuses for letting Gaddafi into the United States. All right, we happen to be the host of the United Nations buildings, and every once in a while, odious folks that we would just as soon arrest or even kill outright get let into the United States because they happen to be world leaders of some stature. Everyone, the stature being everyone knows if you just shoot them, that's going to be a war crime. You're supposedly, the United States would be in trouble for. I don't know if that is anything anybody still believes, but anyway, they're coming to address the UN. Diplomatic passport, etc. You got to let them in. Okay, but that doesn't mean that we have to let them stay, for instance, in our hotel, or in this case, let him pitch this elaborate, overly decorated Bedouin-inspired tent on our property. That's what Gaddafi wanted to do. Remember, he's got to make a show for the people at home. He can't just go and stay in the penthouse suite at the Ritz-Carlton. He's got to have a tent because he's a genuine Bedouin, but not that genuine because look at the tent he's using. So no one will let him stay. In fact, he actually asks permission. Can I pitch the tent in Central Park? It's a good idea. Central Park said, no, it's not. You can't. And a couple of other public spaces, including Englewood, New Jersey, was apparently approached for this one. And they said, no, it's even lower odds, I think, asking local elected officials, can Gaddafi pitch a tent in your public park? And, of course, here's some, for the double entendre folks, no, we're not going to allow Muammar Gaddafi walking around pitching a tent in our public parks. That would be disgusting and outrageous. But even literally, we're not going to let him do it. No one would rent him a hotel room. No one would allow him to use the park except Donald freaking Trump. Yeah, I'll take your money. You want to pitch your stupid tent in my on my estate in Westchester County? I don't know. Bedford, New York is where it is. And he takes the money. Funny, though. He pretends not to know. But then later on, he actually tries to wear it as a badge of honor. Check this out. This is more recently. He says, don't forget, this doesn't even make any sense the way he phrases it. I'm not 100% sure what he means by this. Don't forget, I'm the only one. I made a lot of money with Gaddafi, if you remember. Trump said in an interview with CBS's Face the Nation that aired Sunday, that would be back in June of this year. He came to the country and he had to make a deal with me because he needed a place to stay. That's why he had to make a deal with you. You were the only one who was willing to make a deal with him. Everybody else found him too repulsive. You said, I'll take his cash. He paid me a fortune. Never got to stay there, Trump said. And it became sort of a big joke. What ended up happening, I believe the reality is, he paid to rent the land, and they put up the tent, and he decided not to even bother going and staying in the tent. Who knows where he actually stayed? I don't know. He may, in fact, have ended up at the Ritz-Carlton. He may, in fact, have gotten a suite at the Trump Hotel somewhere. We don't know. But Trump makes out like he took his money and then said, you're not allowed on the land. The tent can go there, but you can't. That I find less than believable, let's say. Anyway, the presumptive Republican nominee was talking about this bizarre incident that happened. It happened in 2009 when Gaddafi was in desperate search of a place to pitch his Bedouin-style tent during a visit to New York for the meeting of the UN General Assembly. After trying and failing to secure space in Manhattan's Central Park, on the Upper East Side, and in Englewood, New Jersey, the Libyan government turned to Trump's 213-acre Seven Springs estate in suburban Bedford, New York. Gaddafi never stayed at the property, but it was nevertheless a spectacle. Reporters flocked to town to watch construction crews erect a white-topped tent that was lined with tapestries of camels and palm trees and outfitted with leather couches and coffee tables. At one point, the tent was torn down after the town of Bedford threatened to sue Trump personally, and it was then re-erected to the town's chagrin. So the town actually says, this is too disgusting for our town, we won't allow it. Trump says, okay, and takes the tent down. And then, when all the enforcement officers leave, puts the tent back up again. Why? Because he loves money and he loves Gaddafi. At the time, Trump distanced himself from the matter, hinting that he'd been tricked into renting his land. This is one of the things about what actually, has some value out of this story. It's a stupid story, but how do you like this? At the time, Trump tells everybody, oh, he tricked me. I didn't know who it was. Representatives of Gaddafi, loathed in the U.S. due to his ties to terrorism, had falsified the identity of their client in other instances to make renting property easier. Before the tent was repitched, Trump said he had no idea that Gaddafi might be involved in the deal to rent a section of the estate, the town official said. I don't know who wants to put up a Bedouin tent on my estate. Why would I know that? Yeah, sure. Bedford Town Supervisor Lee Roberts told the Associated Press at the time that Trump told her that as far as he knew, his arrangement was with partners in the United Arab Emirates. Sure. They have tents too. They hate luxury hotels, right? We have business partners and associates all over the world. The property was leased on a short-term basis to Middle Eastern partners who may or may not have had a relationship to Mr. Gaddafi. We are looking into the matter now. Trump Organization spokeswoman Rona Graf said in a statement at the time. Rona Graf. Does she design jewelry by any chance? How come I only notice this now? Or is she a relative of the Graf? This is amazing. I didn't even know this was coming. Let me just put this in here and search Rona Graf. Does she, I don't know look at this. She's, the interlocking relationships with Trump, I could spend a year on. I don't have the time to do it today, and I'm sure you'd rather get to more substantive stories than this. But I just sort of checked this and Googled her. By the way, she is one of the judges on Miss Teen USA 2009. That's, of course, one of the pageants he owns. And I guess she's a spokesperson for the Trump Organization. And I don't know whether, let me say, Trump's right hand, a star in her own right, there's a story here about Rona Graf Riccio, executive assistant to the Donald. And I wonder if she's married to Lucius Riccio, the Commissioner of Transportation for the City of New York. And yeah, I wonder if that's, is she related to the Graf? Is there a Graf jewelry? There is. Graf diamonds. And I gotta wonder now whether there's any relationship there. Okay, well, I don't know offhand, but I'll look into it. Every time I read one of these stories, I'm amazed at the relationships. Trump, by the way, changed his tune 2 years later when he boasted of having screwed the Libyan leader on the deal. I dealt with Gaddafi. Excuse me, I rented him a piece of land. He paid me more for one night than that land was worth for the whole year, or for 2 years, or for 10, or a billion, a gazillion years. He rented the whole world for me. I'm so fabulous. And then I didn't let him use the land. That's what we should be doing, Trump said in a 2011 interview with Fox News. I cheated him, he's now going to claim. But it's okay because he was Gaddafi. We should be cheating our enemies. And I don't know. Should we even be? I'm sure there's a segment of the population that agrees. Yeah, cheat your enemies. Don't cheat your friends. But if you're going to cheat somebody, cheat your enemies. But why not deal honestly with enemies? I hate you and I'll kill you. Honest. What's wrong with that? He reiterated the claim on CNN that same year. Trump said he had leased Gaddafi, quote, a piece of land for his tent. Your estate. Your 213-acre estate is what you released him. He paid me more than I get in a whole year because you don't rent your estate. And then he wasn't able to use the piece of land. So I got in one night more money than I would have gotten all year for this piece of land up in Westchester. I guess it is in Westchester County. And then didn't let him use it. That's called being intelligent, Trump said. It's called cheating. Trump campaign spokeswoman Hope Hicks did not respond to questions on Sunday about whether Trump was aware at the time that he was dealing with Gaddafi and how much money he made from I made so much money, brag, brag, brag. How much did you make? I'm not saying. Say it with me. Hope Hicks, how does she do it? She did not comment. You know who else did not respond to those questions? I didn't, but nobody talks about that. Bedford town attorney Joel Sachs, who dealt with Trump directly on the issue, said that Trump insisted to town officials he didn't know about the Gaddafi connection, and the officials at the time suspected he was lying. What do you know? We believe that Trump knew that he had leased the property to Gaddafi, Sachs said. He definitely denied that he knew, but we had gotten a lot of evidence. Roberts, the former Bedford town supervisor, said Sunday she didn't remember much about the back and forth, but agreed it was a mess. It's a mess, I'm telling you, believe me. It was a very emotional time. People got very upset at the thought of him coming here, she said.
Higher-income voters are narrowly supporting the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton after decades with the GOP. According to a Bloomberg Politics
there we
poll,
are. Holy macaroni. Bloomberg, thanks a lot. They popped up the auto-playing video on that one. Blame them. All right, well, we're almost done with their article, and then we can close it, and then they won't bother us anymore. Roberts basically said everybody was emotional. Westchester County, Bedford, really not a great place to find Gaddafi fans. So naturally they were all pretty upset about that. But there was also an element of the absurd. There was a goat involved. They were going to kill a goat and have it for dinner, she said. When Gaddafi didn't show, it got a reprieve. So good luck for the goat on that one. Trump would say he saved the goat's life, I'm sure. Roberts said she was offered the goat as a souvenir of sorts, but had to turn it down. No, we can't have a goat in my townhouse, she recalled with a laugh. Very interesting story for a number of reasons, not the least of which is it now gives us something to investigate with regard to this Roberta Graf woman. There is another story or two, equally without substance, that brings up a few more weird relationships. One of which will actually give us, I'm working on it. There's a segue to Joan in here, but I haven't gotten to it yet. Let's see. And this one wasn't it, but this is also equally stupid and about Donald Trump. And it will be fun, but I think it will require a couple more minutes than I want to give to this. But let's see. Can I? Yeah, here we go. Another weird set of relationships here. And here's how we'll do this segue to Joan. I actually, in looking at all of these rather stupid sets of relationships here, I actually stumbled upon a couple more weird relationships, and one of which was actually documented and actually makes a tie to another of our stories, but actually documented by Joan. All right, this is where we'll start. The way we'll fit this in my Twitter discussions with David Farenthold and his investigation into the Trump Foundation, I've also come across a very helpful Twitter friend who tweets under the handle, if you want to find him on Twitter, it's at like German, Der Wouter, I guess you would say, DERWOUTER. And the name he attaches to it is Wouter Vanderhorst. I don't know whether that means he's German or, for that matter, Dutch. I don't think I would be able to tell the difference. I'm not that good with those languages. But he tweeted out this really bizarre video and reference to a weird fake sort of property, tourist property rating system that Trump didn't invent, but he gives to his properties. And typically, it invokes known quantities and trusted brands without actually being them, and is, of course, under the near control of Donald Trump. In other words, when Donald Trump wants to say that one of his golf courses or hotels or restaurants in one of his hotels is the most fabulous, world-class, blah, 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 he will say basically, it's an award-winning place. We have a 5-star rating, people want to say about their restaurants or their hotels. What if the actual organizations that give those awards either haven't or won't give you that rating? The answer for somebody like Donald Trump is either start your own or buy one. And so what what Donald Trump's properties win are the Star Diamond Awards. It's not just diamonds, and it's not just stars, it's Star Diamonds. And apparently, Talking Points Memo at one point ran a piece about this. This is, when did this run? May 21st of this year. Well, they didn't run it. They aggregated it. It's an AP piece. Jake Pearson, Jeff Horowitz on this piece here from May. New York company closely tied to Trump honors Trump businesses. The man behind this one, also another oddly tanned, big, toothy, grinning guy, is where's the name here? Joseph Cinque is his last name. It's Cinque. I happen to know that you would pronounce that as Cinque, Italian. Anyway, he's also variously known by the nickname Joey No Socks. For no particular reason, it connotes nothing in particular that this Italian-American gentleman is sometimes known as Joey No Socks. He seems like a very pleasant fellow, and hell of a tan he's got here. The Trump Grill, this piece begins, at Trump Tower has one. So too does the Trump Buffet and Grill in the basement. Indeed, the entire New York City skyscraper, the whole damn building, sports one for being, quote, the ultimate residential building worldwide, unquote. Who do you think wrote that description? More than a dozen Donald Trump businesses, from golf courses, hotels, casinos, ridiculously enough, and private clubs, have been honored over the years with Star Diamond Awards from the American Academy of Hospitality Sciences, a company that doles out shiny plaques representing, quote, the most prestigious award of true excellence in hospitality, unquote. The Star Diamond Awards. And by the way, it's not enough for Donald Trump properties to win the 5-Star Diamond Award. They win 6. I'm serious. They win the 6-Star Diamond rating. Why? Because Joey No Socks says so. He started. It's what you do. I can't win it from Michelin or Zagat's or whatever else that is really out there, or, whatever, AAA, whoever else does ratings. And I'm sure there's better, more upscale ones out there. But I'll just start I'm the Academy of Hospitality Sciences. Poof. Just incorporate, right? And then you give out the things. And if you're sleazy enough, you say, Donald, if you give me $1 million, I'll give you this stupid award. It's not that far removed from what Newt Gingrich does, right? Businessman of the Year, whatever. You just declare somebody the winner in exchange for some money, essentially. Dress it up fancy so that it doesn't look too quid pro quo-y, quo-ish, maybe. But whatever. You build a process, and then poof, guess what? You win the awards. Who else wins the awards? Nobody, just you. How many of my properties will win them? All of them. How many Star Diamonds will there be? As many as you want. In Trump's case, the Academy isn't an independent observer. It's run by longtime Trump associate Joseph Cinque, who goes by the nickname Joey No Socks, and has a felony conviction for possessing stolen property. I really don't know. Joan asking now, this is going to segue to me? It really will. I'm going to have to shorten it a little bit because I want to talk to you, Joan. And I just wanted to, throw that out there. By the way, on the board of the American Academy of Hospitality Sciences, Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Matthew Calamari, which is a totally not a fake name, who is, by the way, Chief Operating Officer of the Trump Organization, and Anthony Senecal. You remember Anthony? Anthony Senecal, Trump's racist butler from Mar-a-Lago, all served as trustees of the American Academy of Hospitality Sciences, which magically awards the 6-Star Diamond Award to every single one of his properties. It's really rather amazing. There's much more actually to that story, and maybe we'll check it out one of these days. But basically, the connection to one of the previous things. Remember Rona Graf, who may or may not be related to the Graf jewelry people, who is Donald Trump's executive assistant and also managed to end up as one of the judges at the Miss Teen USA pageant. Cinque has been a judge at the Miss Universe pageant because Academy of Hospitality Sciences. Anyway, that's all very interesting. Also, by the way, down here lower in the story, it says there was, like Trump, Cinque has been involved in a bunch of lawsuits. One of the times he was sued over God knows what. Who cares? Stewie Rara, remember him from the last round of Trump crony stories? Stewie Rara got mad and upset with Joey No Socks and ended up suing him at one point. I wonder if Trump tried to mediate that dispute. How does this all come around to Joan again? Well, let me bring up her article and see if I can remind myself. Yes, now I remember. We were talking about other crony relationships between Trump and the others. You remember the time we spent on the Charles Evans Foundation the other day. I forget how this one came up just yesterday, but we were looking at the foundation and where the money came from. And everybody knows by now that the bulk of the money that actually ended up in the coffers of the Trump Foundation post 2009 or so came from Linda and Vince McMahon from World Wrestling Entertainment. And one of Joan's pieces in 2015, is that the date on here? No, 2012. So I wonder why it does that. In Pocket, it says the date is November 10th, 2015. In reality, the date is October 25th, 2012. You tell me why that's happening. Linda McMahon and Donald Trump Sitting in a Tree was the title that Joan gave the piece back in 2012. It was interesting, not only because it reminded us of the relationship between the two, by putting it this way, the single largest contributor to the Donald J. Trump Foundation, as listed on 990 forms with the IRS, is denying it gave $5 million to the quaffed one. World Wrestling Entertainment, which now just goes by WWE, distanced itself back in 2012 from Trump amid the Donald's promise to pay $5 million to the charity of President Obama's choice if the commander-in-chief released all his college and passport records. Remember that one? McMahon was denying that the money came from the family foundation, but the WWE, which Joan reminds us is basically Vince and Linda McMahon, says that the Trump Foundation messed up its filing in IRS forms and incorrectly listed WWE as the donor when it should have been the McMahon Foundation. And there's a little clip here that illustrates the page of the 990 that shows a $1 million contribution for that year from World Wrestling Entertainment to the Donald J. Trump Foundation, which was interesting enough by itself. Though I then noticed that they're the second entry on the page, and Joan, I think, one of the articles she linked to as a source in this is where this page came from. She clipped it to show the second listing, World Wrestling Entertainment. I just wanted to point out that the number one, the first listing on that page, is the Charles Evans Foundation, the very donation we were talking about a week or two ago. This one of the $50,000 contributions out of a total of $150,000 that Trump solicited from the Charles Evans Foundation and its trustees to then hand over unsupplemented by anyone else's money, his own or any other foundations, to the Palm Beach Police Foundation in exchange for the Palm Tree Award, which they awarded him at a $250,000 banquet at Mar-a-Lago. By the way, if you go to the source page that Joan used in all this, and Joan, we're ready for you. This is the segue, so anytime you want to call in, we'll get started on the real stuff. The full page that she clipped for the post at Daily Kos is available. There are 4 listed contributions on this page. Although, there's a close-up of another page, I guess. But the listed donors in this, the Charles Evans Foundation, World Wrestling Entertainment, Stark Carpet Corporation, which for whatever reason gave $4,000 to the Donald J. Trump Foundation. And then the fourth listed contribution there, another $50,000. Again, Charles Evans, only this time it says Charles Evans, Joel Pashko, which pretty much confirms our guess from our own reporting / speculating last week that Joel Pashko was in fact the single trustee of the Charles Evans Foundation who approved the $150,000 turnover to the Trump Foundation, because Pashko sits on the board of both the Charles Evans Foundation and the Palm Beach Police Foundation, and probably saw no problem in turning over $150,000 to something he, generally approved of. Next mystery for investigation, by the way, who is Alphonse Schmidt, who is also listed on that page with making a $25,000 donation to the Donald J. Trump Foundation. He is a West Palm Beach resident, and I just Googled him the other day. Turns out in one of the several books, How to Think Like a Millionaire, or whichever one it was, that Donald had ghostwritten by Meredith McIver, who screwed up Melania's speech. There's this one that mentioned, there's a couple pages where it's basically a diary of what he does all day and who he takes phone calls from. Alphonse Schmidt, bizarrely, listed in that day's diary. I took a phone call from Alphonse Schmidt of West Palm Beach for whatever reason. They don't discuss what he discussed with him, but apparently he was also giving him $25,000 on the side at the same time that WWE was giving him the other $4 million, and the very last contribution that Donald J. Trump himself ever made to his foundation, the famous $35,000 in 2009, the last drop of cash, and the $10,000, the first installment from NBC Entertainment, so that he could give away money on The Apprentice to people and pretend it was charity. It's an interesting circle he's got, very tight, in fact, very weird, and he's kind of a cheapskate, and it's all starting to unravel. No, this is just from the 990s from the foundation. Imagine if you ever got a hold of his taxes. No wonder I'll never let you see those. Joan, we're back to you again. Thank you for joining us and for waiting patiently, and thank you for writing that piece in 2012. I had no idea I would be referring back to it again this year, and I'm sure you didn't either.
We had no idea in 2012 Donald Trump was even thinking about this.
Well, not seriously.
Although
anyway.
I looked back at the story and it reminded me that in 2012 Donald Trump was offering $5 million.
Yeah.
For the birth certificate. So,
right.
For the real birth certificate, or for whoever could prove, or whatever. I don't remember what his thing. But that was 2012, not 2011.
Yes.
When he ended this whole thing.
Right. Isn't that interesting? In 2011, he settled it. In 2012, he said, "I'd still like." Well, in this case, he says, "This is his out." That was, I wanted to see the college transcripts.
Oh, that's right. It was the transcripts in 2012.
Yes. So
$5 million.
Yeah, he gets off the hook
from Linda McMahon.
Right. So that's what he was going to do with the McMahon money, I guess. But what a weirdo and a cheapskate, and it never ends with him. And I know this is petty stuff, but it's so illustrative of what kind of person he is. Farenthold, by the way, has tracked down yet another portrait of himself that he has bought with the foundation money.
Yeah.
So that's a second one. A total of, I believe, 10 linear feet of portraiture. Now spent $30,000 in foundation money to buy. And no one has ever seen the $20,000 one, or no one has placed it at this point, although it was reportedly spotted at that same Westchester or one of the Briarcliff Manor Club, which is in the same county as the land he rented to Gaddafi, who never showed up. My guess is Gaddafi didn't show at the estate because he was busy stealing the portrait from the golf club and wanted to make off with it before he was caught. That's probably what happened.
Probably.
So, he's got no dirty hands. He's only doing business with Joey No Socks, Stewie Rah Rah, and Gaddafi.
Well, and just for fun, I pulled up Charles Evans Foundation, Googled, and there's this FATS. What's the guy's name? He's a ticket scalper.
Oh.
Trump Foundation's biggest donor is a high-end ticket scalper.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Ebers, the ticket broker to tycoons. This is a fortune story. Known for being able to get hedge fund honchos behind home plate for the World Series or real estate moguls courtside at the U.S. Open. He's also been, in recent years, the Trump Foundation's biggest benefactor, far bigger than Donald Trump himself, who stopped founding his own foundation long ago. So that's not really a direct connection to the Evans.
Still, well, you have that link.
His nickname's Fats.
Fats. I love how everybody's got nicknames. Although he gives nicknames to people. Maybe Donald Trump gave him these nicknames.
Well, Fats himself affectionately calls people booby.
That's nice. Well, people do things. Maybe you should send me that link through the Skype messaging or email, whatever is easier for you. I'd be curious to see it because getting real estate moguls courtside at the U.S. Open sounds familiar because we just saw that new raft of photos from the Clinton library that were released, the pictures of Bill hanging out in the luxury box courtside at the U.S. Open with Donald Trump.
Right.
It's all, this guy does not have an enormous range. For a billionaire, he's pretty insular, it seems. I mean, it's celebrity circles, but it's pretty tight circles.
Did you see yesterday how he bragged about how much he loves to use other people's money?
Yes. I thought that was very revealing as well. It's nice of him to say so. I don't think he knew that people knew how much OPM he used for his so-called charity.
And nice to know that he really sees the problem with doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking to see if maybe Ebers is recognizable from any of the photos of that box. I don't think he attended himself according to the photos, but I now look to see whether I recognize them from any of the tennis tournaments for the prostate cancer foundation that Trump hosted for a while at Mar-a-Lago on behalf of the Charles Evans Foundation, but then renamed the tournament after himself, even though he didn't give any money. But I check these things out. That and I wonder, this guy's name and profile sounds familiar. He may be one of the Trump Tower residents. He's got a whole weird, like, billionaire frat house thing going on at some of the floors of the Trump Tower. All of his friends who throw money around and pay for one another's, extravagances all live within a few doors and within a few floors of Donald himself. And they have weird poker games going on and strange relationships like with this Stuart Rahr guy. Stewie Rah-Rah. I don't know if you were on the day I described him.
No, I missed Stewie Rah-Rah.
Stewie Rah-Rah is in the news now, but he's a billionaire pharmaceutical guy. They're all terrific people. His billions came from, he owned the company that managed to talk the government into announcing that Cipro, his product, was the only thing that was going to cure all your anthrax.
Yeah.
And then he's a millionaire. Anyway, he sold that company. He's a billionaire hanging out in Trump Tower. Stewie Rah-Rah, as he calls himself. The full title is Stewie Rah-Rah, the #1 king of all fun. That's what he calls himself. It's on his business cards.
King of all fun?
Yeah. I think he stole the construction from Howard Stern, who calls himself the king of all media.
Okay.
So he's the king of all fun. And Stewie Rah-Rah, let's see, most immediately in the news because one of the, I don't remember whether it was $1 million or $100,000, it was probably $100,000 that Trump promised to various charities, I think in connection with his veterans fundraising that David Farenthold shamed him into finally coughing up. $100,000 of it went to a place in New Hampshire, Liberty House. and big ceremonial check handed out at a event, a rally in New Hampshire. But because the CEO of Liberty House is a serious, actual nonprofit, he's like, I can't go to your rally to get a check. It's ridiculous. I'll lose my tax-exempt status. But anyway, a New Hampshire state representative had it, and a picture taken of himself holding this giant check. And then, as it turns out, of course, it's from the Donald J. Trump Foundation. It says, "Make America Great Again" at the bottom, which is also a campaign finance violation. It says on the bottom, unsigned check, by the way, so you can't actually take it to the bank. The real check never showed up at Liberty House, despite the photo. But a check finally did show up for $100,000. They got the money, but it came from the Stuart Rahr Foundation, oddly enough. No one knows why Donald Trump's neighbor in the Trump Tower, the number one king of all fun, paid that. It's not even Donald Trump's usual cheap move of I'll personally donate money and then using the foundation money. He didn't even use his foundation's money. He had Stewie Rahr send a check for $100,000. Why would Stewie Rahr do it? Nobody knows. Probably in his taxes, maybe somewhere, but we'll never see those things. That's part of the reason we're not going to get to see him. He's the kind of person who says, hey, Stewie Rahr, I want you to make good on my obligation, personal obligation, which I was going to cheat on anyway. I want you to do it. Pay the veterans $100,000. What do they care? Well, they don't need to know where it comes from. Stewie Rahr, Joey No Socks, I don't know. Veterans, they'll take money from anybody because what do they care? They're not upstanding citizens or have any honor or anything like that. They just want money. I understand the veterans. Anyway, so that's what's going on out there. Has nothing to do with anything except the character of the guy who says he wants to be president of the United States. But other than that.
Well, and here's a nice coda to that.
Yeah?
Talking about stepping up in place of Donald Trump for veterans.
Mm-hmm.
The Daily Coast community has raised $21,449.
Real dollars.
For the vets that Trump forgot. Friends of Veterans, which is an all-volunteer organization in Vermont and New Hampshire, who helps out veterans. All volunteers, so they don't take any money for themselves. They provide assistance for heating bills, rent, all of the kinds of things to try to keep veterans from becoming homeless. And Trump promised them in his latest round of making promises to veterans $1,000.
$1,000, a whopping 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we beat him.
Oh, actually, they were on the Trump Foundation list as having received $1,000 in 2013, but they didn't.
Oh.
They never got that Trump Foundation money. And then remember when he skipped the debate?
Yeah.
They have a fundraiser.
Sure.
They were supposed to have gotten some money from that. The Trump campaign contacted them and said, can we list you as one of the veterans groups getting money when we have this fundraiser? Of course, they didn't get that money.
Well,
so
we did it.
So we did it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody who did.
We had a $2,000 goal, and we raised $21,449.
That's pretty amazing.
Thank you, Daily Coast.
Yeah, all of you guys who pitched in on that, you can be proud of yourselves. You beat Donald Trump by a factor of 21, I guess. But I actually can't put a number to it because he actually did 0, and I can't divide by 0. Error. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for stepping up and doing that. You're an amazing community, and it never ends. And there's so much work to do. Luckily, the next big job doesn't actually have to cost you money. It's just go vote.
Go vote. Well, and if you have time, the next thing can cause you time.
Yes.
Volunteer.
Yeah. Plenty of things to do.
You can phone bank. You can go door to door. You can deliver yard signs. Yard signs don't vote.
But they help people who feel like voting is a drudgery go because they love signs. Otherwise, they wouldn't ask for one. And now they're happy, so they go up. Happy voters show up. So that's fine. But get out the vote efforts is the key. That'll make the difference. as Greg's been reminding us and everybody has been reminding us all along, that's the big difference. And especially, I saw I never did put this one aside, but a terrific diary a couple of weeks ago on Daily Kos, just reminding everybody that if you're doing, get out the vote efforts and voter registration efforts, to make an effort to get outside of your comfort zone on that. And it was a good piece, I thought. Don't go doing voter registration at the farmers market again for the 5th week in a row. Out into the neighborhoods where people who would love to be able to spend an extra $6 a pound on fresh produce live, but don't make it to the farmers market all that often. And the voter registration probably less dense there than it needs to be, and than it is in the neighborhoods.
Not that it needs to be. It needs to be, 100% everywhere. Well, but
I guess what I mean is it's
where
less
your
dense
efforts
than
are
it
needed.
needs to be.
Yeah.
It needs to be denser. I'm extraordinarily dense. I could probably make it worse if I keep talking. Why don't I let you do it for a little bit?
Yes, go outside of your farmer's market, your library, your places where people are probably already likely to be voters and be registered. And, maybe a Walmart.
That might be a nice spot.
Lots and lots of places out there where folks are going about their daily business, and you can make it easy for them to do the right thing and get registered.
Right. If they have an AR-15, you don't have to ask them, but if they fill out the card, you have to turn it in.
If they have an AR-15, you probably don't want to approach them about anything.
Right. Probably they don't want you there, and you have that one is fine. You can skip that person. Don't ask. But again, if they approach you and fill out a card, do turn it in, even if it says Mickey Mouse, and then they'll defund you after that. The Congress will say you're promoting voter fraud, even though it was the guy with the AR-15 wrote Mickey Mouse. Not my fault. All right. Well, surely something of substance has you interested.
Well, kind of substance. I'm still shaking my head over this story. It's the first thing I wrote up this morning.
Yes. Okay.
Remember the big problem Mark Kirk had 6 years ago running for Senate?
It was the problem of the year, as I recall. Which?
It was big.
Yeah. Okay.
The lying about his combat service.
That's the one. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. That was. I was thinking of the Intelligence Officer of the Year award.
Yeah, that was part of it.
Oh, okay. Good.
That was one of the things he lied about.
Well, he's a lying liar who lies.
He's a lying liar, and he's lying again.
Oh no.
His website, this cycle running for Senate again, this cycle lists him as a veteran of the Iraq War.
Oh.
Not Operation Iraqi Freedom.
No, okay.
No. Not Kosovo, which the previous lies were about, both Iraq and Kosovo, but about the Iraq War.
Okay.
Now, the campaign says, that wasn't ours. A third-party vendor came up with that language. Oh. And it was never supposed to be on the public website. It was just draft language that we had supposed to be on the private website that we were editing to go public.
I see.
Except that it was public when CNN found it.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
All right. It was I guess the best way to do it is, okay, we hired a third party to populate this website with content and design, and they mistakenly called him an Iraq War veteran, and we were supposed to go over all the content before the site went live, but we either didn't or we missed that one, and that's how it went live with the claim.
Or it was accidentally live and wasn't supposed to be because it was supposed to be private, and none of it adds up. None of it makes sense.
That is strange.
It makes even less sense because one of the first big ads of the cycle was Tammy Duckworth's ad hitting him for being a repeated liar about his military service.
And then, what a dumb third party they hired.
What a dumb third party
Now, normally you would expect to see that he was like a veteran of the Lorem Ipsum campaign or something, right?
And where in the world did the third party vendor get such specific information to populate the webpage?
That is, that's a good question. So a veteran of which Iraq war was he saying he was a veteran of?
Iraqi freedom.
Okay. The original.
HW's war, yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, I know that occasionally sometimes people say, well, I'm a veteran and I was in active service during
he was
the
in
Iraq
Congress
campaign.
In the Iraq war.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, one, that wouldn't be active service, I would say. And, I guess if you're in active service during a particular campaign, I guess technically people say, well, but you're not a combat veteran of that campaign. That's a different designation entirely.
Yes. So he said he was a combat veteran. I think that was in Kosovo. And that was also where he said he got the Intelligence Officer of the Year award, which did not
That would be, by the way, an awfully dumb award to get. That's like the Dick Cheney outing Valerie Plame Award of the year. Yeah. All right. And then here you won the CIA Covert Operative of the Year award. Doe. I appreciate the thought, but please don't. Was he ever in combat of any? Does he even serve in a combat-related role when he's on duty? No. Okay. So that's the wrong kind of award to claim.
Yeah.
All right. Third parties, you're on notice. Please, please, please stop awarding combat medals to
Mark
our military. To Mark Kirk in particular, but really leave it to the military. They're a little screwed up, but they have pretty good idea of who's in combat and who isn't. They give out awards for it all the time. No shortage of combat awards for people who deserve it. Look for these little colorful ribbons on there. If he's got one, he's a combat vet. If he doesn't, he's not. So, okay. Good advice for web developers.
I'm still just shaking my head over this.
Yeah. Well, certainly the idea that he would make this mistake so often and be caught so often and still, oh no, I did it again. I called myself a combat veteran.
Oops.
Even though I'm running against an actual combat veteran who you really
lost both her legs.
Yeah, quick glance will tell you.
In war. Astounding to me. Just astounding to me. But, thank you, Mark Kirk, for giving us one Senate seat.
Yeah, well, we'll take that one. Thank you very much. Senate Campaign of the Year. Yoink. I'll take that. Good luck to Tammy Duckworth on that one. You wouldn't think it would be an issue that needed to be discussed so often. You just take a look at the two of them and say, if I told you one of these people is a combat veteran and one's not, could you pick it out, or do you need to go to the web to check this? I don't know. Probably could do it without the research. You never know, though.
You never know.
Stranger things have happened. Okay. Well.
So that was a fun way to start my day.
I can agree. And everyone has the opportunity to put $3 worth of outrage in on that one.
Yeah, help us out. Help Tammy Duckworth out. I mean, what you're doing by helping Tammy Duckworth, even if it looks like it's a pretty safe race for us, it's allowing her a little bit of time and a little bit of breathing space, and it's helping down ticket too.
Yeah, and we need that help across the board. Of course, taking that seat has all kinds of terrific implications, and damn, it would be nice to have that Senate. All right, well, let's see. That is surprising. I guess he's just, I don't know why this keeps happening to him. Third parties keep making these amazing claims on his behalf. It's hard to resist.
It's just astounding. And I love it. And it's fun to talk about a liar who's not Donald Trump.
Yeah. There's plenty of them. And yeah, it's like for all of us scratching our heads, where did this Donald Trump guy come from? He's just pathological. Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing, and this is the thing that we probably don't really talk about enough. Is this is the monster that the Republican Party created.
Yes.
He's a little extreme even for them, but this is what they've been inextricably leading to.
Yes.
All of these years.
The deplorables who back him magically have always also backed all of the rest of his party. They just haven't been so excited about being public about it because he's the one with the biggest mouth and makes them feel more comfortable. The other people are keep them in the shadows, but welcome their support and votes and cater to them in, wink, wink, nudge, nudge ways. Donald Trump gets their additional enthusiasm because he lets them say it out loud.
Yep.
But that's the only difference. Same people, same sentiment, same policies, just a little additional braggadocio on top of it all.
Absolutely.
So,
and when you get a Kelly Ayotte who refuses to condemn this,
yes,
then Republicans, you've got a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep thinking that, someday they're going to wake up to that fact. That they've got to excise this from their base, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Not without our help, and a lot of losses for them. I guess that's the only way that they would even there would even be a chance that they would examine it. But on the other hand, they did a whole autopsy last time. They lost big, and as it turns out, they decided let's do all the wrong things twice as hard.
Right. All the things that we said we should stop doing in our autopsy, let's just double down on those.
Yeah. Those are the ones that work. So I don't know why they wouldn't do it again, although maybe that's just as well, too. I suppose if the results are worse this time for them and they do another autopsy, presumably it gets 4 times worse next time. So the harder we beat these guys, the better.
And it's not like they're not beating each other up. This is the other fascinating thing to me watching this. Like yesterday in the Senate. Mm-hmm. So Mitch McConnell had great hopes that they would finish up this week. That they would get their continuing resolution through. Government would be open. By the way, there are 9 days left.
Oh, yes.
To keep government doors open.
9. Single digits.
Yep. Single digits. That's counting weekends. Yeah. So Mitch McConnell wanted to have that vote this week, get it over with, dump it in Paul Ryan's lap, let him deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
They have not been able to reach an agreement. They had a vote originally scheduled for Monday afternoon, pushed it back to Tuesday 2:15. They had to push it back another 3 hours. They finally had the vote, even though there's not agreement, but to get that vote, it was a cloture vote.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Get that vote, McConnell had to promise his own nemesis, Rand Paul, a vote on not giving money to Saudi Arabia for planes or something.
Not giving money to Saudi Arabia.
Right. So Mitch McConnell says he's going to aggressively fight Rand Paul's bill, but he gives him the vote this week anyway, with 9 days until the government shuts down, because that's the only way he can have his vote on not shutting the government down.
Wow. All right. Well,
give Rand Paul this thing.
And it's just a vote, and it doesn't sound, well, rarely did Rand Paul proposals garner a majority.
This was kind of interesting, though, and I haven't read up enough about it. Chris Murphy is his Democratic co-sponsor.
Yeah, I mean, off the bat,
it's not that it's necessarily a bad bill.
No.
It's something that Mitch McConnell is very much opposed to, and had to give up the hostage.
Okay.
for the larger hostage of government shutdown. It's just bizarre.
It's all right.
Then there's the House.
Yes.
Which spent all day yesterday doing suspensions because, and naming post offices.
Right.
And courthouses. One of which was a courthouse that Walter Jones has been trying to get renamed for a year. And they've refused to allow a vote on because they're pissed at Walter Jones.
Yes. He's a bit of a renegade among Republicans.
He's a bit of a renegade, but his entire delegation was fine with this post office being renamed or courthouse, whatever it was. And, you know, it's non-controversial. It should have just gone through. They should have said, okay, you want to sponsor anything big that really matters? We're not going to let it happen. Your courthouse, sure, fine, whatever, have it. No.
Yeah. All right, well, so they're holding
They had to punish him.
Yeah.
So this apparently caused Tim Holzkamp, who is certain that leadership was behind his primary defeat, to somehow procedurally force all of these votes on courthouses and post offices yesterday. So the House spent an entire day doing that.
Okay, so rather than voice voting suspension bills through, he made everybody come and...
He made everybody come and vote with their cards.
Yeah. And that put him back in Congress. It changed the results of the election, and so it was well worth it. Voila.
They're eating each other, you know.
Yeah. Well, all right. I mean, you know, it's anybody can cause that kind of a problem. It's usually not something. Well, I guess there's no pressure on him now. He's out, so he can do whatever he wants. But I mean, what a bad taste to leave in everyone's mouth. Of course, he'll come back later trying to run for Senate, and everyone will say, "You're the jerk that made me waste my whole day voting on suspensions," if they remember.
Yeah,
but
if they remember.
Or Freedom Caucus people will love it. I understand that Freedom Caucus was dealt another blow earlier. Their bid to bring a quick, no review impeachment bill to the resolution to the floor on the IRS commissioner got sidetracked.
It did get sidetracked. They're having a hearing today, and this was the thing that appeased most of the Freedom Caucus members from deciding that they wouldn't have this floor fight, was if they had a hearing today.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that they still have the promise of maybe having the impeachment vote in the lame duck, although they're not supposed to be doing things in the lame duck.
But that would be okay.
That one would be okay.
All right.
But Hulskamp is still raising hell on that one. He might still try to force a floor vote on that one, because he's just, you know.
I guess he wants to try to get something done before he used to retire.
He wants to make sure nothing gets done before he retires, except that he wreaks as much havoc as possible because he's angry.
Well, yeah. Okay. It's one of the stages of grief, and the country has to pay for it.
That's true. It is one of the stages of grief. Do we have a government shutdown? Probably not. Is it out of the question? By no means.
Yeah. I guess it's still looming.
It could happen. 9 days.
It's good for elections.
And, you know, the Senate today is doing something entirely not related to government shutdown. So the good news is apparently they figured out the Zika problem.
Oh.
And there will not be punishment of Planned Parenthood in Zika funding.
Okay.
The other problem, however, is that Republican senators want flood relief funding to go to Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats are saying, well, yeah, if you're going to do that, we finally have to help Flint.
Oh.
And the Republicans are saying, no, we don't want to help Flint. Despite the fact that last week they voted on a water bill that did include Flint aid. They voted for it. Republicans voted for it. It passed.
Okay.
But the water bill hasn't gone through the House yet, and probably won't go through the House, at least before lame duck, so they could vote for Flint, knowing that the money actually wouldn't go to them.
That's clever.
Now that we're in a must-pass bill, a spending bill, and there's going to be aid to Flint, they don't want it.
Because it might work.
Because it might work. Because the money will definitely go.
Well, that's an excellent find there, and it's just another one of those terrific procedural tricks where you get to come out and say, when people who are pro helping Flint confront you about it, I voted for that. But then I heard you voted against it in the, the faster moving emergency bill for Louisiana. Yeah, but that's because I had already, how many times do you want me to send the same money? We have to keep a lid on things. I voted to send them whatever they send, whatever the figure is. And most people, certainly without the benefit of an explanation like yours, can't quite get their head around, what do I say to a guy who said I voted for it and I can see on the record he did.
Yeah.
You got to learn it. You got to learn the tricks. Yeah, I voted for it in a bill that wasn't going to move, and voted against it in the bill that was. But I'm for it.
Yep.
Good find. Terrible thing.
Terrible thing, but yeah, it's a pretty good illustration of how it works.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were here to tell us about it. We got a little bit of a slow start on getting to the substance today, but gosh, it makes it so difficult to get around to the substance.
Hey, Don Jr.'s engagement ring was fascinating.
I found it fascinating. It's very cheesy, and
it's very cheesy.
But then I wish we all had the opportunity to, get ourselves $100,000 diamond rings once in a while. Occasionally you can do that. If you get married on TV, I think.
I think so. I'll pass. I'd take the money.
Yeah. Right.
But I'll pass on the rock.
Okay. Well, yeah, just as well. And, somebody probably did something evil to get a hold of that one anyway.
Right.
So, all right. Well, money is one thing. Diamonds are another. But I appreciate your patience in letting us get through the garbage that fills most of our time in election coverage, and then giving us a full helping of substantive protein to help build strong muscles.
I do my best.
Thanks, Joan. I appreciate it as always.
Talk to you next week.
Okay, take care. Hopefully there will be no government shutdown in between. Well, it won't be between now and then, but we'll really be against the wall next week.
Yes, we will. Cross your fingers.
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks again, Joan. Joan McCarter, our senior political writer at Daily Kos, making her weekly visit and discussing, what there is to discuss anyway, and throwing a little campaign flavor into it, too, with the Mark Kirk story. Thanks again. And now, time to turn the mics over to the guys at the after show to pick up on all the other fantastic stories now circulating, including that Ammon Bundy had, as it turns out, over $8,000 in cash, as people often do, when he and other occupiers were arrested at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge takeover, and it was discovered with a smuggled cell phone he had smuggled a cell phone to coordinate a possible ambush of the transport taking them to jail. That won't play very well in front of the judges, I don't think. The Milwaukee County coroner ruled an inmate held in a jail run by Trump-loving Sheriff David Clark died from dehydration after guards cut off his water for 6 days. And the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ruled that black men running from police should not automatically be interpreted as evidence of criminal activity.
Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
A sensible position taken there by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. Then, on the last half, they'll be reporting that the fraud case against oil and gas giant Exxon just went federal, and almost 2/3 of Americans are exposed to unsafe levels of the cancer-causing chemical compound chromium-6 in their drinking water. Stay tuned.